little while ago, I contacted my Facebook group and I asked for some questions for these shorter segments of You Are Not Aries on the podcast, and I got a bunch of them. I'll do the first one. That one is from Brian, and he wanted to know, under adrenal stress, how do you know when you have to stop? For instance, not putting in the extra strike and going from legal self-defense basically to actually injuring somebody, hurting them, and you become the aggressor. I'm going to leave aside the moral aspect. Is, morally speaking, is this justified or is this something that you should or shouldn't do? I'm going to leave that aside. I'm only going to talk about the legal aspects. Why? Because I think that's Brian's question to begin with, and also I think that's the one that to this day you still see a lot of people just discounting that. It's the old saw of, I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. I get it. I did a whole episode about that a while ago, where I think that's complete nonsense. It's not black or white. It's not, in reality, the choices are not those two. You can actually learn to defend yourself and try to stay within the bounds of the law and avoid going to jail. It's not, self-defense or death. That's just not how it works. But, people try to justify their behavior and justify that they shouldn't train certain things when they really don't feel like it, or they feel they shouldn't have to because their morality says that they don't have to. Well, that's a silly excuse to use then, and that's what you get. Again, I'm not going to go into that. I'll just focus mainly on the legal aspect. A few things that I'll mention. What can you do? First one, how do you stop yourself from knowing or of going over the line? You have to know where the line is. I've said this for decades. Please go read up on your self-defense laws wherever you live, in your country, in your state, in your area, whatever. Just make sure you know what they are. Second, go talk to police officers. Why? Because they're the people who arrest folks for what these people thought was self-defense, but actually went over the line. Police knows the law most likely better than you do. Then talk to criminal defense attorneys, lawyers who actually spend time in court pleading cases where people are being charged with a variety of things, and the defense is that they claim that it was legal self-defense. Don't talk to a divorce attorney. Don't talk to an intellectual property rights attorney. Talk to a criminal defense lawyer. Why? Because in law there are specializations. Yes, your divorce attorney may have a general understanding of what the laws of self-defense are like, but he is not in the trenches in court every day working with those laws, and he doesn't necessarily know how it plays out in court when you make a certain claim, when you put forward a certain law and say this is what justifies what I did. It may or may not be the case that is helpful. So talk to a specialist. Then you can get a better understanding of where that line is and be ready to be unpleasantly surprised that it's very often not where you would draw the line. That within the law you're often a lot more bound and restrained than you'd like to be. That's just the reality of living in my case and in many people's case who are listening, in a modern Western society. That's just the way it is. You don't like it, change the laws. Get your congressman or whoever it is that you vote for, get involved politically and change the laws if that's what you think is wrong. Other than that, not much you can do but accept it and try to avoid running afoul of the laws so you don't end up in jail. So first thing, information. The second thing that you can do is at a very minimum work on yourself. I've talked about this many times, have a mission, have a personal safety mission, which is that, you have to have a mission statement for yourself. It can be very simple, in which you say, what is my purpose? Mine is very simple. Every time I leave the door, my whole goal is to come home safe and sound afterwards and spend time with my family, friends, loved ones, and so on. That's it. And live an awesome life. Anything that is not compatible with that mission, I try to not do. Doesn't always work out, but you have to try to stick to the mission. I wrote about this in an article about self-defense tips for men many years ago. It's still one of my most read articles on my blog. I'll put a link in the show notes, but that is the most important tip is first, it starts with you. Why are you reacting extremely aggressively when somebody, just bumps into you? I mean, he might be an asshole, the guy bumping into you. Doesn't mean you have to get all violent right away. That's your choice how you react to it. Sure, there's plenty of reasons and situations in which you have to defend yourself. But there's also plenty that you can let go, where you don't win anything. The only thing that happens is that everybody loses. So that would be my second tip, is try to work on yourself and try to avoid situations in which you potentially could go too far. And if you have that mindset, it's going to be easier, in my experience, not just my opinion, but in my experience, to let go of certain things and to control yourself when you do end up having to use physical techniques to defend yourself. So that would be the second thing. Third thing is that you try to incorporate limiting factors in your training. What does that mean? The danger is that you will be emotionally hijacked due to the adrenaline that you have in the situation where you have to fight to defend yourself. Because you're outraged or angered by the person who attacked you and that triggered the whole thing, or that the adrenal dump just takes over and your higher brain functions aren't really working all that well anymore, and you're just working on pure instinct or fear, and you lose control. This is a reality. There are many people who are in jail because they went too far and went further than the law allowed. There's many examples. If you go online, you'll find a bunch of them where, for instance, morally speaking, you would say like, no, that person was justified in what they did, but legally speaking, they weren't. And then a prosecutor, a DA, went after that person and put him in jail. And even if you don't go to jail, it's going to be very expensive and going to take years of your life to go through that process of trial and appeal and so on. And it can actually ruin your life, even if you are found not guilty. So you really want to avoid that kind of stuff happening just because you lose control. So what can we do to regain control or not lose it? Build it into your training. For instance, in my basic self-defense videos, and a quick tangent on that, same thing as with my second Boxing for Self-Defense book. A lot of people have asked me about that. When is the next one coming out? Over the years, many times I've been asked that. I'll put a link in the show notes. I recently wrote a blog post addressing that issue. There are reasons why. First one is I'm busy. I'm very busy, and I don't have enough time to write. Not compared to how it used to be. So I'm doing the best I can. Same thing for the videos. There's a lot that goes on in making an instructional video that is of professional quality. And just the cards haven't been on the table for me to do that very recently. So I haven't forgotten. It's just that there's a lot more going on than I will talk about. So back to the program. In that basic self-defense course, one thing that I teach is one of the basic techniques that we use in it is to put somebody on the ground. Basically, you grab their face and use a specific technique and they end up on the ground. And then you take a step back and you look left, you take another step back, you look right, or vice versa, or a variation of that. There's different ways of doing a 360-degree scan. There's a lot of discussions about how you should do that. Do whatever way you like. The point is, you do it. You have ingrained in you that there is a condition that triggers a specific action that is a restraining principle, a limiting principle that stops you from just going too far. And you ingrain that in your training. Why? Well, let's assume that you are attacked for whatever reason and you do as I instruct in that video. You defend yourself when he swings, you grab his face, you drive him over backwards, he loses balance, and he smacks onto the ground in a controlled fashion. Maybe he gets the wind knocked out of him, maybe he bangs his head a little bit on the floor, but he's overall okay. You could continue striking. You could immediately rain down just one punch after the other, or kick the guy, stomp him. There's much that you can do. In this case, however, what you train yourself to do is to take immediately a step back as you disengage from the guy and you do your 360-degree scan, so that it buys you time to regain control over your options, meaning that you focus on what is going on, what just happened, and what do I want to do next. That it is more a conscious decision as opposed to just you reacting purely with outrage, with fear, with emotion, with anger, and pure instinct, as opposed to having a trained reaction. If he hits the ground, you immediately disengage and back up a few steps. That more than likely buys you a second or two to look for a potential second opponent, but also break the tunnel vision that you might have. We know this happens under adrenal stress, is that you get tunnel vision and that you focus so much on the guy in front of you that you're open to somebody else attacking you from the side or what have you. But also that as long as you keep locking on to that guy, you will see him as a threat, and there's a high likelihood that you keep attacking and striking until he stops moving, until you've done too much, until it's way over the line. By doing that 360-degree scan, you break that line of sight, you break that focus, that lock on the guy, and have to reacquire it. That is on purpose, like I said, always looking for a secondary attacker, but also so that once you focus on him again, you look afresh, so to speak, at the situation. You look away, and when you look back, you look at it again, and you train yourself to actually look at what's going on, not what your emotions or outrage or fear is yelling at you to do, but is he still a threat? If he's lying there dazed and confused, hardly moving, that might be a good time to get away and get to safety and start running. If you see that he makes the intention to get up, if he starts moving and he's rising from being tossed onto the ground, you can choose to disengage further and start running, or to move in and make sure he doesn't get up and attack you again. Depending on context, that might be what you do. However, either case, it's still going to be a more conscious decision than purely on instinct, where you just keep on doing whatever you're doing. No. You make a conscious decision to go after him, or to stop, or to flee, or to yell at him to stay down, or whatever it is. But you buy yourself both the time to make that choice, and also you train yourself to do this consciously, to look for more answers than just keep striking. One of the best ways to train this is with a good training partner and role-playing scenario training, where you do different scenarios where your partner eventually swings at you or attacks you. You put him to the ground, you take your step back, do your 360, and then you look at him, and your partner shows you different options as you work through the scenarios. One time he's just like groaning there, or he's yelling in pain, "Oh, you broke my arm," whatever. Next time he's just playing possum, and if he sees that you're not disengaging properly, he just immediately tries to jump up and come after you again. Other times he rolls over to his side, and it might look like he's going to get up, but he doesn't. So it's the quality of your training partners in how good they are at scenarios is going to make a big difference. But that is a way that you train this capacity, this capability, this skill set of not going too far, of deciding what your next course of action is, instead of just randomly or purely on instinct doing things and then ending up on the wrong side of the law. Is that easy? No, it takes work. Is it worth it? I think so. In fact, I'm convinced that it's worth it, because if you don't think not spending the rest of your life in jail, or 10, 20 years in jail, and losing your house and losing your family, if you think that's not worth it to train things that you might be uncomfortable with at first, or that you think, well, I shouldn't have to. Okay, again, like I say then to many people when they say something that I think is fundamentally extremely unwise, I say, vaya con Dios. God go with you, because he's the only one who can help you if that's your choice, and I wish you the best. So that's a little bit of an overview. I could go on and on about this, but these You Are Not Aries episodes are supposed to be 10-15 minutes, and we just hit the 15-minute mark a few seconds ago. So I'm going to leave it here. Thank you, Brian, for your question. I hope this is a good answer. Let me know in the comments over in the Facebook group. I'll put a link to the Facebook group as well, so you guys can join if you like, and see all the discussion there. All right, that's it, guys. Take care.